Hey, so what did you want to be when you grew up? Anybody out there ever want to be, police officer, firefighter, doctor, astronaut? Anybody ever want to be a judge? Well, maybe you're finding yourself judging yourself right now, and that's your primary occupation, and you don't even know it. And what if I told you that the way you judge yourself is the very thing holding you back from your growth? See, most people default to self-judgment when they fail or struggle, but performers, they get curious instead. So there can be a real danger whenever we label ourselves. Like if you say something like, well, I'm just lazy or I'm just not disciplined, you're giving yourself a verdict instead of an opportunity. For example, like think about the Wright brothers. Like everybody credits them with, figuring out how to control an airplane. And I didn't know this until very recently, after doing some research, that the Wright brothers didn't just roll on down to Kitty Hawk from Ohio and just take off and have things go super smooth. They actually had to go down for multiple years. Multiple years. I mean, back then, that was like a big trek from Ohio to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. They were obviously driving there because you couldn't fly yet because they hadn't invented the airplane yet. But during their 700 plus test flights, Orville and Wilbur Wright recognized that each time the aircraft didn't do what they expected it to do, or it just fell short of the mark that they were expecting, they took that as a data point. They didn't take it as a verdict that this was doomed to fail. They didn't take it as a verdict that they were failures. They were able to decouple their egos from what they were doing. Because if we are just so judgmental of ourselves, what happens is it creates this vicious cycle where the judgment creates shame. And then the shame leads into inaction. And guess what? The inaction reinforces the judgment that we failed because now we're not doing anything. So, what separates high performers? One of the best examples of this is Michael Jordan, like the Michael Jordan. Maybe you're wearing a pair of his shoes right now, but Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. What if Michael Jordan had labeled himself as not good enough or a failure? But he didn't. He did what one of my mentors, Tim Hahn, taught me to do, which is ask a better question. So Michael Jordan, instead of asking like, why did the coach cut me? Why can't I do better? What's wrong with me? He asked a better question. He said, what do I need to do to improve? And he carried that mentality with him throughout his, just legendary career. Like the story goes, like when they were in Europe for one of the Olympics and the USA basketball team was over there, well, everyone else was like out there like partying and having a good time and living it up because the US team was just destroying everybody. They would come back and there would be Michael Jordan just sitting in the lobby watching game footage, preparing for the next day. He was continually curious about figuring out how he could be better. So instead of just saying like I'm bad at something, become curious. Switch from being judging with yourself to being curious. We talked last week about the words we say to ourselves matter. You stop telling yourself the beatings will continue until I make a better choice because we need to be curious. So ask questions like, why is this happening? What's the next step? And here's a framework for you. When something happens that is maybe not the way you want it to have happened, or even if it is something that happened, let's focus on facts and not feelings first. Focusing on facts and not feelings by asking questions like, what's actually happening? Like, what actually happened? Not what do I think happened? What's my interpretation of the situation, but what actually happened? And then, second, we want to look for patterns when we're being curious and not blame. Because blame is a judging mindset, which isn't serving us, isn't serving our growth. So when we're looking for patterns and not looking for blame, ask questions like, why did it happen? What events transpired that caused this to happen? And be honest with yourself. Because I guarantee in some way, shape, or form, you've contributed to that. We don't like to admit that, but we always have a little bit of responsibility in whatever happens to us. And then finally, the third step to help us get into this curiosity mindset, the third step of the framework is, what is my next step? Figure it out. Spend some time with it. When you get truthful about what actually happened, why did it happen? How did I contribute to that? And then asking, what is my next step? Because the one thing that will beat overthinking is action. So if we get into action instead of just getting stuck in overthinking, a lot of times we can really begin moving forward. So start to begin to think of your life as an experiment and not you're on trial in court of life. That's not what we're here for. Because the moment you stop being the judge and start being the scientist of your life, progress will become inevitable. Like think of all the athletes, entrepreneurs, and artists, actors, actresses who are so successful. It's because they're able to not dwell on mistakes. They're able to analyze, adjust, and act again. So analyze, adjust, act again. Nowhere in there is there room for judging yourself. Ownership, yes, but judging, no. So over the next 24 hours, replace every self-judging thought you have with a curious question. Not, why don't I have more clients for my business, but what can I do to get more clients for my business? Or why am I so lazy? It's no, what can I do to take one small, consistent action right now? So, love to hear your thoughts. Comment down below or DM me what shifts for you. And next week, I'm going to start covering my 6 leverage points for success. It's brand new content. It's what my new keynote, elite level action is structured on. And I'm looking forward to jumping right into it with you next week. Onward and upward, everybody. Thank you.